Hello, this is Scott Borthman, the principal author of vZome. Today I'd like to share with you this short video describing the general behaviors of the vZome toolbars in vZome 6. There are three toolbars. The first one, the top one, we'll call the factory toolbar. Second one we'll call the main toolbar. And the third vertical one on the left is the bookmarks toolbar. Let's start with the main toolbar. There are several sections here, 5 different sections. The fifth section is empty initially, and we'll come back to how we can put tools in that section. The first 2 sections contain simple tools that don't need to be configured. The first section corresponds to a couple tools from the edit menu. Second section for joining struts, joining balls with struts, etc., corresponds to some tools in the construct menu. The next 2 sections contain configurable tools. These are configurable in the sense that you can right-click on any tool and configure the behavior with respect to the input selection and the output selection. We'll come back to that in a moment. It bears mentioning that all of these tools are enabled always because they can operate on any selection, anything in the main toolbar. It could be an empty selection, it could be balls, it could be struts, it could be panels, or any combination. When we configure a tool, we right-click on it, and we get the tool configuration dialog. The input selection behavior is in the first panel, and the output selection behavior in the second. The different tools have different defaults for their behaviors. In this case, the default is to keep the input selection selected. We can also choose to deselect the input, and if we're deselecting, we can choose to actually delete the inputs. For the outputs, the default for most tools is to create new objects and select them. If you wish to make a tool that will not create new objects but simply select existing objects, then you uncheck the Create checkbox. If you are creating, you can also leave the objects unselected. The Parameters tab lets you see the original parameters for this tool. In the case of this rotational symmetry tool, we'll see that the parameter is this red strut through the origin. You may notice that as I click on different objects, changing the selection, different buttons in the factory toolbar are enabled. This is because these buttons are used to create new tools, and each type of tool requires a specific kind of selection as its parameters. To create one of the tools that's enabled, we simply click on it, and the tool will appear here in the 5th section. These tools are configurable just as before, but custom tools that you've created can also be renamed. The name appears on the tooltip when you hover the mouse over it. Unfortunately, these names are not saved with the document yet, so they're only good for the current editing session. All of the buttons in the factory toolbar have a tooltip that explains in detail what kind of selection enables this tool. The third toolbar is the Bookmark Toolbar. This toolbar includes a single factory button for creating new bookmarks. The Bookmark Creation tool is enabled whenever there is any non-empty selection. And simply clicking on it gives you a new bookmark. If I deselect, I can recover that selection simply by clicking on the bookmark. Even if I delete some of the objects that were in that selection, they'll be recreated in order to be selected. There's one bookmark created for you by default, which is the ball at the origin. Note also that bookmarks are additive, so clicking on a bookmark simply adds to the selection. It doesn't replace it. Eventually, bookmarks will be more configurable, including changing their name,